Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 126. I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it's great to be with you again. I'm trying to speak slightly slower this week because a avid listener of the show has been writing in saying that they were transcribing episodes of the podcast for their class and that I speak at a speed a little bit too fast for them. Well, maybe not too fast, but I get it. It's a pain in the ass. Anyways, welcome to Inside Music, your source for conversations about life in the music industry. That's the tag I just made up. We probably won't use it again. Just disregard it. Anyways, on this episode of the show, it's kind of crazy. We have the number one rock band in North America on Inside Music today. Yes, A Perfect Circle has stopped by the show to discuss their brand new album, their upcoming tour dates, and what it's like to return from a 14-year break as a band. And not only be welcomed back with open arms, but to have one of the best-selling rock albums of the year so far be your first release after all that time. I gotta be honest with you, when I was a kid in high school, which is how long it's been since A Perfect Circle released an album, I never thought the day would come when I could interview them. Even in the 10 years that I've been writing about music, A Perfect Circle was always one of those mythical bands. Perhaps because of the members of the group and, the stories behind them. They were always one of these, crazy high-level rock acts that never kind of were small. As soon as A Perfect Circle burst onto the scene, they were one of the biggest bands in the nation, and when they disappeared in 2004, they were still a gigantic rock band. And look, they've returned bigger than ever, arguably, with an album that is unlike anything they've done so far. It's cinematic in a way few records ever attempt to be, and it's filled with doom and gloom, yet it's listenable. It's not a downer record. I mean, it is a downer in the fact that there are songs that are sad and there's a lot of morose themes and topics, but it's just so beautiful. It's really hard to turn off. Before we get to this episode, I do need to bring up a few quick things. For starters, this episode of Inside Music and all episodes of Inside Music is brought to you by Holix, the music industry's leading digital promotional distribution company. What that means is that Holix works with record labels, publicists, and independent artists from all over the world to share new and unreleased music without fear of piracy. To find out how they do that and learn more about the service, visit Holix.com. That's Haulix.com. And we have a special offer for Inside Music listeners. If you visit this month and sign up, you will receive your first month of service absolutely free. Again, that's Haulix.com, Haulix.com. I also have a new bit of information for you. Next week, on May 19th, I will be hosting a live version of Inside Music. Yes, our very first live recording. It'll be taking place in Chicago at the Beyond the Music Industry Workshop, and my guests will be, I'm not going to tell you all my guests, but I will say that Alex Smith, the merch guy for Sleep On It, and Allison Lanza, one of my favorite industry personalities, period, and a wonderful merch person, will be two of the guests, and there is a third that you'll just have to show up to find out about. But it's going to be a good time. We're closing out this day-long event, and you can get tickets online for just $5. So visit the Holix Daily blog, just type in Beyond the Music Chicago, or visit us on Twitter at Inside Music Pod or at Inside Music POD for more details. And finally, I want to encourage you to support A Perfect Circle. I know I just said that they had one of the biggest albums in the world right now, which is true, but let's be honest. Rock and roll isn't what it once was. The number one genre in the world right now is easily pop music, arguably hip hop or something a little bit more urban, but rock and roll has kind of fallen out of the spotlight. With this record, A Perfect Circle proves that there is not only still a place for rock, but that rock can dominate the world as long as the songs are good and the audience is there. So if you're a rock fan and you've been itching for that next album that's going to captivate your life, seek out what A Perfect Circle is working on. And also catch them live. The group is doing a lot of festivals this month. I know they're playing Northern Invasion over Mother's Day weekend. I believe they're at Rock on the Range, and I think they are doing at least one more show in there somewhere. Maybe they did Carolina Rebellion. I'm not 100% sure. But they are doing a lot of festivals, so also get out and do that, okay? This has been a long intro, so I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of music, and then we're going to get to the conversation with The Perfect Circle. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.
like cake in a crisis. We're bleeding out.
I'm doing well, Billy. How are you doing? I hope you're not too burnt out from a day of conversations with other people.
No, the quick 90 minutes.
How long have you been on the promotional trail for this album now? I feel like it's the big build up until the album release, and then you usually get like a breather, and then you kind of hit it again.
Yeah, exactly. We've done a ton of press for this record. I'm not as overwhelmed as I might have been like 3 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of the interviews that you've done up till now, and even some of the ones I read this week, they all were kind of conducted before the album had come out. So I feel like I'm catching up with you in two different ways today.
Yeah.
Well, in most of these conversations, you were kind of talking about being caught in that weird 3-month stretch kind of between the album's done and then people get to hear it. So now that we're 2 weeks on the other side of people getting to hear it, how are you feeling about things?
Good, but I have to say I feel a little disconnected from it. I don't know if that's a process or the product of being older or not being on tour. So I'm back in my own little world. I get kind of reports, like our manager will give Maynard and I like updates of how it did, if it sold or not, or, things like that. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like it feels a little, until you're out playing, it's kind of just watching it on TV for me a little bit.
Well, there's also that thing, I think, whenever you have like that big build up to something coming out, like there's a part of you that thinks it's going to come out and then something's going to change, and then it comes out and you wake up Saturday morning and you're like, oh, I'm still Billy. Like,
right.
It's just okay. So it's Saturday now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not that I thought anything was going to change, but it certainly is. I don't know. I mean, to answer your question specifically, not much has changed. It's just truly like a week and a half off, which is weird.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, if I'm doing anything work related, it's just working on what's coming next. So, I'm kind of putting my next album together in concept for Ashes of Vibe for next year. So I'm kind of skipping into that mode. So I guess I'm disjointed a bit.
Well, you have to be happy with how things have been going so far. We were talking at Hollis. You were pretty excited when we woke up Monday morning to all the sales numbers and things like that. I mean, are you someone that concerns yourself with that? But I mean, in the age of people buying records, it has to be good to see.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but it's also one of those things. They give you the sales figures and they go, and you have to ask, okay, is this good? And then they go, yeah, great. So, okay, great.
Yeah. What is this good now? What is this? Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. In 2018, is this good? So yeah, it's exciting. And it's, obviously everything is weighted. So as far as everything weighted goes, it was an amazing release for us. And, and now on to the next thing, which is the shows. So yeah, I mean, it's great, but if it was terrible, it wouldn't derail us. And if it was great, it doesn't derail us. So we're just kind of going with the flow and, continuing on.
Yeah, it really is uncharted water, a band having not put out a record for 14 years. You don't really know what's going to happen. And even I myself, there's this thing, in the last 5-10 years, it's gotten this nostalgia circuit has kind of really emerged in the world of rock and alternative music. And there are some bands that kind of step back into the spotlight and they just kind of go to that circuit where they're like, and now they're a nostalgia act, kind of like an early nostalgia act. And then there are bands that kind of come back and it's almost as if they've never left. And it was so cool to see those numbers come in, because when I heard the album, I was like, oh, they did something different and they're back and people are going for it. It's like the best of all worlds as a fan.
Right. Absolutely.
and I guess for you, it's probably the best of all worlds too.
I don't mean to underplay it whatsoever. I just don't want to get too hung up on feeling like we did something of worth because it was received that way or not.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
and so that's a really hard. It's a hard thing to have reservation about, and but I feel like one of these days we're going to go out and have drinks and celebrate this record. We just haven't done that yet, so that's why maybe that's what it needs. That's what I need to have it kick into reality.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Well, I think you said like you guys have the shows coming up and you're doing a lot of the big festivals, so I think that'll probably help sink it in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's really nice. I mean, I've had people reach out and give some kind words, and and I've looked at. I know this is the kiss of death. You shouldn't do it, but I feel like I'm in a place where I can do it. To look at reviews or like how people are receiving the record. It's interesting to me because I think everyone goes through that in their own way. Whether you're putting out a record or you're putting up a picture on social media and you kind of want people to see it and react to it. I mean, everyone kind of goes through that today, and you have to be ready for whatever comes your way.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the inspiration for the record. I was reading another interview that you did where you had mentioned that your experience doing some composing work on film had really informed the album a little bit. And I wanted to speak a little bit more about how you got into that because I haven't actually seen, I watched the trailer for D-Love today because I haven't seen the movie. So I wanted to kind of do some research on what you were talking about. But can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in that and like why that experience was, so big for you?
Well, it's kind of what I always wanted, but not where I thought it would come from. I always wanted to score a movie. I wanted the, cake and eat it too scenario of having it be a director that wants me. And it wound up being, good friends of mine that made a feature film and then asked me to compose it. So, they first asked me to be in the movie as an actor. And so that's kind of the first thing. And they said, and of course we want you to score it too. It's kind of that afterthought thing.
Of course.
So, and to be honest, the acting part was certainly a lot more fun and a lot quicker than it is to compose music for a movie. And, I wound up being music supervisor, which is, if you know what that is, picking songs that are going to go into it and then trying to get them cleared and licensed. And that's that took at least as long as the music did to compose. So it was great, but I became all things production, or I wouldn't say all things. I became I was the right-hand man to the director, Elena, to kind of technically go along this ride with her for her first film. So it was awesome in a lot of ways, but musically, trying to figure out how to write music for something that I normally wouldn't do, and what she wants there was just intimidating and really challenging and really rewarding too. It was, God, I can think back of sitting in this room. I mean, I'm in my studio right now, and she'd be sitting on the couch on her laptop, probably working on, the other business part of the movie, and I would just keep composing, and she's listening, and once in a while she would say, "Oh, that's amazing,"
Great.
And it was really nice having that feedback in that moment, especially when you're, writing film for music for a film. You just never know if someone's going to connect with it. So I was lucky to have that.
I saw a quote where you said that the person that scores a movie is the last storyteller, and I really believe that's true. And it's a sentiment that I don't think a lot of people really realize what the impact of a score can be to a movie. And when you were just talking about that, how I can't imagine the process of trying to score a movie, the pressure of being like, is this the mood? Like, because that you're kind of dictating how people will feel with what's happening on screen.
Sure. Yeah, you're informing the audience this is a suspense movie and not a tense drama. This is there's comedy here, and the comedy is so tragic that we really need to know that. It's really hard to do, especially if you're a novice like me. I mean, there's plenty of great examples to draw from, but everything is so unique, and it's not one size fits all with movies. there's so much work that goes into it. And I don't know. I think it's like, in a way, I think everyone should go to therapy just for the sake of going, because I think you wind up talking in a different way than you normally would, whether you continue on or not. Everyone should take an acting class, and everyone should see how a movie's made. It'll really like test the metal of who you are. You know?
Yeah. You know, it's true. It's true. I think there are some things in life where if you look behind the curtain, so to say, it can kind of ruin it for you. But in movies, it's almost more magical when you realize how many things have to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I just saw A Quiet Place. The movie
Yeah.
A Quiet Place. Oh man, did you see it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I really love that movie. I think it was so well done in so many ways, and this isn't a but or addendum to it. Just like the music itself, the character of that music in the movie was incredible, and it had so much heavy lifting to do, and did it so well. You know?
And that's a great example of a film that makes people kind of realize, like, people don't understand the power of silence in a movie until something like that kind of emphasizes it.
Yeah.
When you were speaking about roles in a movie, I always think I've always found it fascinating, but I've always been somebody that was like, if I could have a dream job, for me, it's always been music supervisor, because I feel like you get to make mixtapes every week. Like, that's the closest you get to a professional mixtape maker, is a really good music supervisor.
Yeah. Yeah, until you're on a movie with no budget like this one. I mean,
yes,
it was maddening. I mean, I could imagine it's awesome when you're into a 8-figure budget movie, but I called in a lot of favors, but then again, it wasn't just people I knew that wouldn't fit. They had to fit. So it's like, yeah, I know a lot of musicians and a lot of bands, but they're not necessarily going to fit in this movie. So. Yeah, that was a hard job, I have to say. Music supervisor was a tough job. And then getting clearance and like dealing with publishers and writers and lawyers and stuff, that was tough.
I used to work in licensing a little bit, and I remember getting phone calls where people would be like, "Listen, we can't afford Sweet Home Alabama, but I need Sweet Home Alabama light. Like, just I need you to find me the closest thing to Sweet Home Alabama that I can afford." And you're like, "All right."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there was two places where I was determined to put opera music in this movie, and it should be really easy. And there's all these resources where you can go and listen to tons of them, and then you realize, oh shit, not everything is the same. And we've listened to hundreds of cues of opera music. And then when you look at the movie, you'll see, if you ever see the movie, it's so superfluous to the scene, but if it was wrong, it was so distracting that it took you out. So, yeah.
It's one of those things where if you do it right, no one notices.
Right, exactly. That's the whole point. To not be a distraction. Get out of the way, support, and get out of the way.
Well, on the idea...
It's like I guess...
Go ahead.
Here's my clever analogy. You're this really scary monster that's lifting a raft out of the water and saving the occupants from the tidal wave that's coming. But if you stick your fingers up and stick in poke into them, that's frightening because they know a monster's right under them. So all you can do is try and lift it up purposely, and then, okay, that was bad. All right, didn't work. It sounded better in my head before I started coming out.
Fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine. And moving on, I do want to ask you a little bit. I want to ask you about the idea behind the album art. Like, when did that come along in your creative process? Was that something that, as a band, you kind of put together, or did that come out of working on the music? Like, when did that image come into your head?
That came from Maynard.
Maynard.
So that's
all right.
Yeah, this is Maynard's baby. Whereas I feel like the first record, that was my baby. This was his. He took the reins on this guy.
So is that when something like that is discussed? Is it an email? Is it like I have an idea, or is it this is what we're doing?
No, we were on a flight and he told me about, look, I got a concept for it. Trust me. It's going to seem this, going to seem that. And, just trust me on this, and that's all you got to say. I mean, we both kind of pick our battles and see, we're in we're in a relationship where it's like any other. There's compromise, and then there's when you put your foot down, and then there's where you take you kind of let the other person talk and have trust.
I do love Maynard, but hearing how cinematic some of this record gets, do you think we could hear you do more instrumental work in the future, kind of in this area? I feel like now that you've composed and then hearing this album, it's like the perfect middle ground would be this instrument, something instrumental from you.
It's funny that in doing the next, um, in working on this next Ashes Divide record, I just listened to a handful of the songs the other day, and I don't know, it's just because I'm singing them, but I thought, it'd be interesting to release this as an instrumental. Um, and then it goes, yeah, then writing something with an instrumental in mind um, would be much different, I think. I think it'd be really hard. I think it'd be I might be really second guessing things overly at that point because the vocal provides so much. I mean, to keep my attention long enough to keep wanting to listen to it over and over would have to be something unique.
Yeah, and I guess if you're doing composing, it's really you kind of have there is a blueprint. There's something else. There's another component to what you're doing. But if it's straight up instrumental, you kind of have to figure out how to tell a narrative that is compelling with only one tool almost.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think you could pull it off nonetheless. You have my faith.
Yeah.
Well, speaking up to the upcoming month, you guys, you do have these gigs coming up. Are you excited to get out there and bring these songs to the people? It is. I'm excited to see you guys live this month. I'll see you at Northern Invasion. I just like seeing how high you are on the list because it's such kind of a somber album, and I'm excited to see it brought to life. It'll be darker, hopefully, by the time you guys go on at some of these shows, and I think
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how it sounds live.
Yeah. I'm always excited for that. It's the live is. I used to get asked this in the beginning, or in the first few years of Perfect Circle, what do you like more, studio or live? And I was always like, yeah, it's 50-50. And now I'd certainly say it's live.
I wouldn't guess
It's where
that
it all.
about you.
It's
Really?
where it all. Yeah. No, I love touring and I love playing live. I miss my family when I'm out on the road, but I like the ritual. I even like the day-to-day part. And I'm speaking from I know from a kind of a privileged space with that because we're playing bigger places and we have a hotel room when we need it and we're on a tour bus. We're not
Exactly.
slugging it out in a van. And I like that part too. But I was in my 20s when I was doing that, being a roadie, and I still like the adventure of that. I don't think I would like that in my 40s. So. Yeah, I love playing for sure.
Are you planning to bring a lot of the new record out to these shows? I mean, I obviously there's going to be people who are expecting the older stuff, but since this is so new and it's been so long, I'm curious how much new material will kind of filter into the set list.
I used to be more. I mean, and used to be. I'm talking about recent history. Involved writing the set, and more recently, just I'm putting that into Maynard's lap as to what does he want to sing that day, So he's steering the ship on the set list for the most part.
Now, do you guys do a lot of rehearsals before you go out, or is this like how many songs? Can he just pick any songs in the catalog for you guys to play that day? Are you ready to go, or is there 20 that you know really well, and the rest maybe need a little more time?
Well, interestingly, we have a replacement for James who's going back to the Smashing Pumpkins for their reunion tour. So Greg Edwards is filling in for James. Greg Edwards from Failure and Autolux, who we're honored and excited to have out. We've done a few shows. We've done a week of shows with him, and everything was great. He doesn't know everything from the past. So whereas with James, we could probably pick out most any song as long as we just did it in sound check that day. With Greg, I don't know how many songs we kind of put together. Maybe it was like 30 or 25, 26, something like that. So we'll keep chipping away at it when we get some headline shows to do some sound checks. But like you mentioned, Northern Invasion is first. I think that's our first show. Yeah, that's our first show coming up. So we have a lot of festival shows that we're going to jump right back in with no rehearsal. I mean, we will not have played for over 2 weeks when we play that show, like no sound check.
That's another example of something that when you were in your 20s probably would have sounded kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, but it comes with that. That's one of those great things about being able to actually have a long-term career in music. You get to a point where that's something you can do, and it has to feel that has to feel kind of nice to be able to have that breath. Be like, we can do this. I can show up in 2 weeks and be able to play. We'll all be ready to go.
I'm somewhat I'm not totally feeling without pressure about it.
Well, then you wouldn't be alive, right? Pressure's
exactly.
part of living. Well, I thank you so much for talking to me, man. This album is someone I spent a lot of time with, and it's so funny because it came out and it was still basically winter. I live in Michigan, so it was still basically a hellscape here. And then this last week, as I've been getting ready for this interview, it's been like 90 degrees for 4 days in a row. And I love the album, but there are mornings when I'm trying to get ready and it's just like 90 degrees and the album is like, it's a lot of doom and gloom for me because I don't like the heat. And the album fuels it for me. I'm just like, I'm over this. But I can't wait to see you guys next week at Northern Invasion. I think it's going to be incredible. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good talking to you too. Bye.
Have a great day.